Hey everyone, happy Tax Talk Tuesday. Can you believe that we are already in the last week of August? I mean, I feel like it was just March last week, and I guess next week we can go ahead and put up the Christmas tree, and then before you know it, it's going to be 2021. And you know what that means? That means it's time to start figuring out your 2020 tax filings. And to prepare us for that, the IRS has recently provided a few reminders and updates on their website, which we wanted to pass on to you. How about that for a transition? I thought that was really smooth. First, because so many individuals in our country have found themselves on unemployment, the IRS wants to remind everyone that unemployment benefits are taxable. So if you've been receiving unemployment throughout this pandemic, those benefits are taxable. If you have not been withholding anything, we don't want this to come as a surprise and be a tax burden for you next year. So to reiterate, by law, unemployment compensation is taxable and has to be reported on your 2020 tax return. Unless the law changes, which we're going to keep our eye on, this is going to include any of the special unemployment compensation that was authorized under the CARES Act that was enacted earlier this year. What that means is that in January 2021, unemployment recipients are going to receive a 1099-G from the agency that pays their benefits. And if you've been receiving unemployment, haven't withheld anything, now really is the time to start making sure you're setting something aside. If you're not sure you can do that, you can fill out what's called a voluntary withholding form so that at least part of your tax burden would be covered. It's a flat 10% withholding. Finally, if you've returned to work or you do return to work before the end of the year, it's also a really good idea to use a withholding calculator to update your W-4 and make sure you're withholding enough from your upcoming salary to cover any unemployment compensation, the tax on that unemployment compensation that you were receiving. After all, and especially after all of this, nobody wants a surprise tax bill next year on unemployment benefits, especially if they didn't realize that those benefits were taxable. Going back to this year, though, so we've talked a little bit about next year. Going back to this year, at some point during this March to September or August or December or wherever we are now, you probably filed your 2019 personal income tax return. If so, did you or are you supposed to receive a refund? If the answer to that is yes, and you filed timely, which was by July 15th this year, you may be receiving interest on that refund. That's right, more money. Because this year's filing deadline shift was considered a disaster-related postponement of the filing deadline, the IRS is required by law to pay interest calculated from the original filing deadline, which is the typical April 15th, up until the date that the refund is issued. This refund interest requirement only applies to individual tax returns, though, so this is not coming for businesses. The interest that the IRS pays is actually pretty good. It's paid at what's called the legally prescribed rate, and the rate for the second quarter this year was 5% compounded daily. And then in the third quarter, so starting on July 1st, that interest rate did drop down to 3%, but it is also compounded daily. So if you were receiving or you received your refund or it was issued after June 30th, I have to track that. After June 30th, you're going to receive interest at some kind of a blended rate, but it is based on the total amount of your federal refund. But before you get too excited, the IRS has stated that the average interest payment is going to be about $18. If your refund was issued prior to the April 15th deadline, the original tax filing deadline, you're not getting anything. And finally, by law, the interest payments that you're receiving, whether it be $1 or $18 or $50, that interest is taxable. So if you receive more than $10, the IRS is going to generate a 1099 INT that they will send to you in early 2021. Overall, the IRS is reminding us now to prepare for 2021. It seems really far off, but if this year shows us anything, it's going to be here before we know it. As always, let us know if you have any questions about anything in this video. If you enjoy these updates, please subscribe to our channel. It's probably not nearly as exciting as cat videos, but there's a whole lot of helpful videos there and more on the way. Thanks again for joining us, and see you next week.